Hi, my friends. Hi, third graders. Welcome back. Let's continue reading from James and the Giant Peach by Roald Dahl. We are now on chapter 3. We met Aunt Sponge and Aunt Spiker. We know that they're very mean and not very kind ants towards James. And he had now, the chapter ended where he's kind of huddled up in the corner of the garden crying because he's so sad. Chapter 3. It was at this point that the first thing of all, the rather peculiar thing that led to many other much more peculiar things, began to happen to him. For suddenly, just behind him, James heard a rustling of leaves, and he turned around and he saw an old man in a crazy dark green suit emerging from the bushes. He was a very small old man, but he had a very huge bald head and a face that was covered all over with black whiskers. He stopped when he was about 3 yards away, and he stood there leaning on his stick and stared hard at James. When he spoke, his voice was very slow and creaky. "Come closer to me, little boy," he said, beckoning James with his finger. "Come right up closer to me. I want to show you something wonderful." James was too frightened to move. The old man then hobbled a step or two nearer, and then he put a hand in his pocket of his jacket and took out a small white paper bag. "You see this?" he whispered, waving the bag gently to and fro in front of James's face. "You know what this is, my dear? Do you know what's inside this bag?" Then he came nearer still, leaning forward and pushing his face so close to James that James could feel his breath blowing on his cheeks. The breath smelled musty and stale and slightly like mildew, like the air in the old cellar. "Take a look, my dear," he said, opening the bag and tilting it towards James. Inside the bag, James could see a massive amount of tiny little green things that looked like little stones or crystals, each one about the size of a grain of rice. They were extraordinarily beautiful, and there was a strange brightness to them. They sort of illuminated. It was like the quality of letting them glow and sparkle in the most wonderful way. "Listen to them," the old man whispered. "Listen to them move." James now stared into the bag, and sure enough, there was a faint rustling sound coming from inside the bag. And then he noticed that all the thousands of little green things were slowly, very, very slowly, stirring about and moving over each other as though they were alive. "There's more power and magic in those things in there than all the rest of the world put together," the old man said softly. But what are they?" James murmured, finding his voice at last. "Where do they come from?" "Aha!" the old man whispered. "You'd never guess that." He was now crouching a little bit more now and pushed his face now even closer up to James until the tip of his long nose was touching the skin on James' forehead. Then suddenly he jumped back and began waving his stick madly in the air. "Crocodile tongues," he cried. 1,001 slimy crocodile tongues, boiled up in the skull of a dead witch for 20 days and nights, with the eyeballs of a lizard and the fingers of a young monkey and the gizzards of a pig and the beak of a green parrot and the juice of a porcupine, and 3 spoonfuls of sugar. Stew for another about a week, and then let the moon do the rest." And all at once, he then pushed the white paper bag into James's hand and said, "Here, you take it. It's yours now." Chapter 4. James Henry Trotter stood there clutching the bag and staring at the old man. "And now," the old man said, All you've got to do is take a large jug of water and pour all the little green things into it. Then, very slowly, one by one, add 10 hairs from your own head. That sets them off. It gets them going. And in a couple of minutes, the water will begin to froth and bubble furiously. And soon as that happens, you must quickly drink it all down, the whole jugful in one big gulp. And then, my dear, you will feel it churning and boiling in your stomach, and steam will start coming out of your mouth, and immediately after that, marvelous things will happen to you. Fabulous, unbelievable things, and you will never be miserable again in your life. Because you are miserable, right? Aren't you? You needn't tell me. I know all about it. Now, off you go. Do exactly as I say, and don't whisper a word of this to those horrible aunts of yours. Not a word. And don't let those green little things get anywhere near them either. Because if they do escape, then they will be working their magic upon somebody else instead of upon you. And that isn't what you want at all, is it, my dear? Whoever they meet first, be a bug, insect, animal, or tree, that will be the one who gets the full power of their magic. So hold the bag tight. Don't tear the paper. Off you go. Hurry up. Don't wait. Now's the time. Hurry. And with that, the old man turned away and disappeared into the bushes. Chapter 5. The next moment, James was running back towards the house as fast as he could. He would do it all in the kitchen, he told himself, if only he could get in there without Aunt Spudge and Aunt Spiker seeing him. He was terribly excited. He flew through the long grass and the different nettings, not caring whether he got stung or not on his bare knees, and in the distance he could see Aunt Sponge and Aunt Spiker sitting in their chairs with their backs towards him. He swerved away from them so he could get to the other side of the house. But then suddenly, just as he was passing underneath the old peach tree that stood in the middle of the garden, his foot slipped, and he fell face first into the grass. The paper bag bursted open as it hit the ground, and the thousands of tiny little green things were scattered in every direction. James immediately picked himself up onto his hands and knees and started searching around for his precious treasures. But what was this? What was happening? The green little things were all sinking into the soil. He couldn't actually see them. He could actually see them wiggling and twisting as they burrowed their way downward into the hard earth. And at once he reached out and tried to pick some up before it was too late, but they all disappeared right under his fingers. He went after some others and the same thing happened. He began scrambling around frantically in an effort to catch a hold of those that were left, but they were all too quick for him. Each time the tips of his fingers were just about to touch them, they vanished into the earth. And soon, in the space of only a few seconds, every single one was gone. James felt like crying. He would never get them back now. They were lost, lost, lost forever. But where had they gone to? And why in the world had they been so eager to push down into the earth like that? What were they after? There was nothing down there, nothing except the roots of the old peach tree, and a whole lot of earthworms and centipedes and insects that live in the soil. But what was that the old man had said? Whoever they meet first, be a bug, insect, animal, or tree, that will be the one who gets the full power of their magic. Good heavens, thought James. What is going to happen in that case if they do meet an earthworm or a centipede or a spider? And what if they do go into the roots of this old peach tree? Get up at once, you lazy little beast! A voice suddenly was shouting in James's ear. James glanced up and saw Aunt Spiker standing right above him, grim and tall and bony, glaring at him through her glasses. "Get back over there immediately and finish chopping up those logs," she ordered. Aunt Sponge, fat and plumpy as a jellyfish, came waddling up behind her sister to see what was going on. "Why don't we just lower the boy down into the well in the bucket and leave him there overnight?" she suggested. "That ought to teach him not to be lazy like this and sitting around all day." "That's a very good idea, my dear Aunt Sponge, but let's not make him not stop cutting the wood. Be off with you at once, you hideous brat, and go do some more work." Slowly and sadly, poor James got off the ground and went back to the woodpile. Oh, if only he hadn't slipped and fallen and dropped those precious things in that bag, all hope of a happier life had gone completely now. Today and tomorrow and the next day and all the other days as well would be nothing but punishment and pain and unhappiness and despair. He picked up the chopper and was just about to start chopping away again when he heard a loud shout from behind him that made him stop and turn and look. And you will have to wait to hear what they're all looking and screaming at for Chapter 6, which we will enjoy tomorrow. All right, third graders and my other friends, have a great day, and I'll see you soon.